I knew I was a disappointment from a very young age. No one ever said it outright, but I could see it in my mother's eyes, in my father's sighs, and in the way they treated me compared to my younger sister. I am Rachel, their firstborn, the child who was supposed to be a boy. No one spoke the words, but I always felt the silent disappointment, the way they had expected something different on the day I was born. 3 years later, my mother gave birth to my sister Lily, and I overheard something I was never meant to hear. "Maybe next time it'll be a boy," my mother's voice echoes in my memory. A brief remark, yet one that haunted me throughout my childhood. But the next time never came. Complications from Lily's birth left my mother unable to have more children, and their dream of having a son was shattered forever. Instead of accepting reality, they placed all their hopes on Lily. I never knew if it was because they truly adored her, or if she was simply their last chance to have a child they could love without disappointment. It didn't take Lily long to figure this out. She quickly learned how to pout, how to whine at the right moments, how to flash a bright smile whenever our parents praised her. And just like that, everything that was once mine was pushed aside. The love, the attention, and even the small things a child should naturally receive. I was never starved or abandoned. I had enough clothes, enough food, and I attended a good school. But warmth was always in short supply. If Lily was the sun, shining brightly in our home, then I was merely my own shadow. I didn't have her big, sparkling eyes, her soft, sweet voice, or the kind of innocence that made adults melt. I was just Rachel, the quiet, independent eldest daughter that no one really paid attention to. Over time I learned to stand on my own without expecting protection. As a child, I had tried to impress my parents, hoping that if I studied hard enough, behaved well enough, they would be proud of me. But the praise I longed for never came. My academic achievements earned nothing more than a brief nod, while one of Lily's scribbled drawings could make my mother beam with excitement for an entire day. One evening when I was 17, during dinner, I announced, "I want to study business." I expected some kind of reaction, maybe a little pride, maybe some curiosity. But my parents only exchanged glances. "Are you sure?" my mother asked, setting her fork down. "That field is quite dry. Why not consider something more suitable for a girl? Teaching, perhaps? Or nursing?" My father nodded in immediate agreement. I looked at Lily. She just smirked and shrugged. I had predicted their response. I had anticipated the disappointment in my mother's eyes. I was used to it, that feeling of never being enough. But that night, I realized something else. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their permission to pursue the life I wanted. Because if I couldn't find my place in this family, I would carve out my own path. I left home to study business at the University of Washington, carrying nothing but a single suitcase and the resolve to never look back. There was no farewell party, no warm embrace from my parents. Only Lily, leaning against my bedroom doorframe, arms crossed over her chest, with that familiar, lazy smile. "You're going to fail," she said as I grabbed my bag, "and then you'll come crawling back here like a loser." I didn't respond. I just walked away. College was a challenge, but it was also my liberation. No longer did I have to live in Lily's shadow or witness the silent disappointment in my parents' eyes. Here, I was no longer Rachel, the unwanted child. I was Rachel Matthews, a business student, someone who could take control of her own life. And it was in the university library, among towering stacks of finance textbooks, that I met Nathan. The first time we crossed paths, I was reaching for a macroeconomics book, when I accidentally bumped into someone standing beside me. The book slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. "Sorry." I bent down to pick it up, but his hand was faster. "It's fine," he said with a smile, handing me the book. "Rachel, right? I've seen you in Professor Anderson's class. You're the one who always asks the tough questions." I felt my face heat up. I never thought anyone would notice me, let alone remember my name. From that day on, Nathan became a part of my life. We studied together, debated lecture topics, and gradually, our study sessions turned into coffee dates and late-night walks around campus. He was the first person to see me not through comparisons or expectations. He just saw me for who I was. By the time I graduated, Nathan was already working at a well-known financial consulting firm. He waited for me, and as soon as I landed my first job, we decided to move in together, in a small apartment in downtown Seattle. I didn't think my parents would care, but I still called to tell them. "Nathan?" My mother's voice suddenly turned unusually cheerful. "Your boyfriend? He works in finance? That's a good job." I hadn't expected their interest, and even less so what they said next. "Bring him home," my father said. "We want to meet him." I knew the reason. It wasn't because they wanted to give me their blessing. It was because they thought they had finally gotten a son. Nathan didn't realize it at first. When we went home that weekend, my mother hugged him tightly as if he were her own flesh and blood. My father patted his shoulder, eagerly asking about his job, his future, and even his plans for marriage. I watched it all with a strange feeling in my chest. They had never looked at me with that kind of pride. But with Nathan, with a man, they didn't bother to hide it. That night as we were leaving, my mother beamed at him. "Nathan, will you come home for Christmas, and for Thanksgiving too?" I was standing right there, but they didn't mention me, as if Nathan was the one who truly mattered in this family. I stayed silent the entire drive home. But inside me, something had shattered. We got married a year later, in a small and simple ceremony, just the way I wanted. No extravagance, no noise. Just a little garden, a few close friends, and Nathan standing in front of me, smiling lovingly as he said his vows. I thought it was the beginning of a happy and peaceful life, but I had forgotten one crucial thing. My family never left me alone. Less than 6 months after the wedding, the questions began. "When are you two planning to have kids?" At first it came up in my mother's weekly calls, then, it became the main topic at every family dinner. "You know, young couples shouldn't wait too long," she said as soon as I sat down at the table. "I read in an article that the longer you wait, the harder it is to conceive." "We want to be financially stable first," I replied, trying to stay calm. My father shook his head and set his glass down. "You're overcomplicating things, Rachel. Your mother and I had nothing when we raised you two and we managed just fine. What matters is having a complete family." Nathan gave a small, awkward smile, saying nothing. I knew he felt uncomfortable, but I wished he would speak up for me. But what shocked me the most wasn't the pressure from my parents. It was Lily's change in behavior. One Saturday evening, after a long day at work, I received a text from her. "Come home. I have news." When I walked into the living room, Lily was sitting on the couch, her hand resting proudly on her stomach. "I'm pregnant," she announced, her voice full of excitement. My mother let out a joyful gasp and rushed to hug her. My father's face lit up with pride. "That's wonderful, Lily," he said. "We're going to have a grandchild." I stood there in silence. They had never been this happy when I told them I was getting married. But soon their excitement turned into something else. "But where's the father?" I asked, glancing around. I had never heard Lily mention any serious relationship. My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, that doesn't matter. Men come and go. What's important is that she's having a baby. And she won't be alone. She has us." I understood immediately. Once again, Lily had been placed at the center of their world. In the months that followed, my entire family seemed to revolve around Lily and the unborn child. My mother redecorated Lily's old room into a perfect nursery. Something I had never been given. On the day baby Emma was born, I went to the hospital, hoping to see my sister grow into a more responsible person. But no, Lily was still Lily. "Can you hold her for a bit?" she asked the moment I walked into the hospital room. "I'm exhausted." I looked down at the baby in her arms. She had big, round eyes, gazing up at me with an innocence I had never been allowed to have. And in that moment, I realized this child would have everything I never did. But the worst part was that Nathan noticed it too. He quickly grew attached to Emma. Every weekend when we visited, he was always the first to pick her up, to play with her. I saw him smile at Emma in a way I had never seen him smile at me. My mother noticed, and she didn't miss the chance to emphasize it. "Nathan really has a knack for being a father," she said, watching him hold Emma in his arms. "It would be such a shame if you couldn't give him a baby soon, Rachel." I clenched my fists under the table but remained silent. I was used to being overlooked. But I never expected that even in my own marriage, I could become an outsider once again. As time passed, the pressure to have children weighed heavier on me. At first I tried to ignore my mother's repeated questions, my father's knowing looks, Lily's casual teasing. But gradually, even Nathan began to change. "Rachel, do you think it's time we started seriously trying?" he asked one evening, over dinner. I set my fork down, my throat tightening. "You think I haven't been serious?" I replied, my voice quiet but sharp. He sighed. "That's not what I mean." "But it's been over a year and—" He didn't finish, but I understood. We had been trying. Every month I tracked my cycle, tried every possible method. But the result was always the same. Nothing. Worry slowly turned into fear. Something was wrong with me. I scheduled an appointment with a gynecologist. Nathan went with me, holding my hand as I walked into the clinic. The tests were conducted in silence. Blood work, ultrasounds, hormone evaluations. Then came the agonizing wait. And then, the day of the results arrived. The doctor looked at me with sympathetic eyes. "Rachel, I'm so sorry." I didn't hear the rest. The words passed through my ears without sticking. "Premature ovarian failure. Unable to conceive naturally. The chances are very low, nearly impossible." I clenched my hands in my lap. I knew this news would change everything. That night, Nathan and I sat in silence at the dinner table. Neither of us touched our food. "We can try IVF," he finally said. "Or adoption." I nodded, but deep inside, I knew things would never be the same again. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself for long. The following weekend, I told my parents over dinner. I tried to stay calm, but my heart pounded as I forced the words out. "I can't have children." Silence filled the room. Then my mother set her chopsticks down, crossed her arms and pressed her lips together in disdain. "So you're useless then." Her words cut through me like a blade. "Mom," I gasped, barely believing my own ears. My father didn't even look at me. "An empty vessel," he muttered, shaking his head in disappointment. Lily chuckled, bouncing Emma in her arms. "You're not really a woman then," she said with a pitying smile. "Mom must really regret putting her hopes in you." I turned to Nathan, silently begging him to say something to defend me. But he just sat there, staring at the table, saying nothing. I felt like I was sinking. Lost in the very family I was born into. I couldn't stomach the rest of that dinner. I got up, walked away, leaving behind the hushed whispers at the table. That night, I lay in bed with my back turned to Nathan, silent tears soaking my pillow. I knew I had lost something. Not just the ability to be a mother, but my last remaining place in this family. I had thought the greatest pain in my life would be not being able to have children. But I was wrong. The greatest pain wasn't losing something. It was realizing that the people you trusted most could betray you. After that fateful night, things between Nathan and me slowly changed. He started spending more time at my parents' house, or rather, with Lily and Emma. At first, I told myself it was just normal concern. That he simply adored Emma as an innocent child. That he was trying to fill the emptiness we couldn't. But then, I noticed the small, yet undeniable changes. He started coming home later after family dinners, always with the excuse of helping Lily with something. Lily's messages to his phone became more frequent, always saying things like, "Nathan, are you free? I need your help with this." He mentioned Emma more than he mentioned me in our conversations. One Friday night, I came home from work, carrying a bag of Chinese takeout, Nathan's favorite. But the apartment was empty. He wasn't there. I called him. No answer. A bad feeling crept into my chest. I unlocked my phone and instinctively scrolled through social media. I rarely looked at Lily's posts. But this time, one popped up at the top of my feed, making my hands tremble. A picture of Nathan, Lily and Emma sitting on the couch in my parents' living room. Nathan was in the middle, Emma nestled against his chest, and Lily leaning into him more than necessary. But what truly made my heart clench was the caption beneath the photo. A happy moment with the ones I love the most. The ones I love the most? I stared at the screen. My hands turned ice cold. This couldn't be real, it couldn't be. But the truth was right in front of me. I jumped into my car, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I didn't care if they thought I was crazy. I needed answers. The front door was unlocked, as always. I pushed it open, hearing voices coming from the living room. "Nathan, you know we've always considered you part of this family," my mother's voice carried through the house. I froze, my feet cemented to the floor. "And you deserve a real family," my father added. "A woman who can give you children. No one would blame you for choosing the right thing." I held my breath. Then Lily spoke, her voice soft but dripping with meaning. "We all know Rachel can't give that to you." I couldn't take it anymore. What the hell is going on here? I stepped into the room, my voice shaking with fury. They all turned to look at me, their surprise lasting only a second before it faded into mild annoyance. Nathan's face went pale, but he said nothing. Lily just smiled. That smug, victorious smile. "Rachel!" My mother sighed, as if I had just interrupted an important discussion. I turned to Nathan, my throat raw with anger. "Do you have anything to say to me?" He avoided my gaze, staring at the floor. No excuses. No denial. The ground beneath me felt like it was crumbling. "Do you love her?" My voice was ice. Nathan didn't look up, but after a long pause he nodded. Just one simple nod, and it shattered everything I had ever believed in. Lily placed a hand on Nathan's arm, a silent claim. "You should have seen this coming, Rachel," she said, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "A man deserves a real family. A real wife." All the emotions inside me evaporated. No more pain. No more rage. Just emptiness. I turned away without another word. That night, I went home and packed my things in silence. I left a single note on the kitchen counter. No tears, no pleading, no arguments. Just a few simple words. "File the divorce papers, my lawyer will be in touch." And just like that, this chapter of my life ended. I walked away without looking back. The divorce was swift and cold. We split everything according to the law. No fights, no drawn-out drama. Nathan and Lily got what they wanted, and I got what I needed. Freedom. At first, the emptiness was all I could feel. I had lost a marriage, a family, a part of my life. But as the days passed, I started to realize I hadn't really lost anything at all. Nathan was never meant for me. My family never truly loved me. And if I had spent my whole life not realizing that, now was the time for me to start over. I moved to a new city. A place with no old memories, no pitying looks, no whispered gossip. I buried myself in work, spent time reading, exercising, doing things I had never had the chance to do. Then one day, I bumped into a man at the grocery store. "Sorry." His voice was warm and deep as he hurried to pick up the milk cartons I had just dropped. I looked up, and for the first time in months I truly smiled. His name was Daniel. We started with a cup of coffee, then a dinner, then endless conversations. Daniel was unlike anyone I had ever met. He wasn't in a rush, he didn't pressure me to share my past. He was simply there, listening when I wanted to talk, staying silent when I needed space. When I told him that I couldn't have children, I had braced myself for disappointment. But he simply took my hand, his gaze gentle. "Rachel, I love you. Not for what you can or can't do. If we want children we can adopt. If not, that's okay too. I just want you by my side." I broke down in tears right then and there. A year later, we got married in a small ceremony at City Hall. No parents, no Lily. Just our closest friends and a man who truly loved me for who I was. We built a simple, happy life together. I never thought I could love someone so completely. Then one day, everything changed. I started feeling exhausted every morning, dizzy, heavier than usual. I thought I was just overworked. Until Daniel joked, half seriously, "What if you're pregnant?" I laughed. That was impossible. But then, a strange feeling made me pause. A week later, I sat in a doctor's office, clutching a positive pregnancy test in my shaking hands, when the doctor smiled warmly and said, "Congratulations, Rachel. You're pregnant." I cried. I had spent my whole life believing I couldn't have children, believing I was a broken woman, as my mother had once called me. But life had a way of proving us wrong. 9 months later, I held my baby boy in my arms. A healthy little boy, with Daniel's eyes and my dark hair. We named him Ethan, the greatest gift life had ever given me. 3 years later, my life was completely different. I had a loving husband, a wonderful son, and a real family. Not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen. I no longer thought about the past, about Nathan, about Lily, about my parents. But fate had its own way of bringing them back into my life. Not to hurt me, but to let me witness their downfall. That evening, Daniel had just received a promotion, and we decided to celebrate with dinner at an upscale restaurant in the heart of the city. I was sipping my wine when my eyes happened to scan the dimly lit corner of the restaurant. And I froze. There, under the warm golden lights, was Lily, leaning in close to a man I didn't recognize, her hands gliding over his arm intimately. That man was not Nathan. They weren't even trying to be discreet. Flirtatious glances, sweet smiles, and then a kiss, right in the middle of the restaurant. Daniel noticed my change in demeanor and leaned in. "What's wrong, love?" I didn't answer. I simply lifted my phone and snapped a few pictures, each frame capturing her betrayal perfectly. When the stranger left, Lily remained at the table, pulling out her phone with a self-satisfied smile. I didn't know why I did it, but I tapped on Nathan's social media profile. Right at the top of his page, a picture of him and Lily appeared. A perfect family portrait, Nathan holding Lily and Emma, with the caption, "A complete life with the ones I love the most." How ridiculous. I didn't do anything right then. I simply saved the pictures into a secure folder and went on enjoying my evening, but I knew one day I would need them. A week later, I ran into them. I had taken Ethan to the park when I spotted my parents, Lily, Nathan, and Emma on the other side of the playground. My mother was the first to see me. She froze, her eyes locking onto Ethan, the grandson she never even knew existed. Lily was the first to break the silence. "Oh, look who it is. Rachel." Her voice dripped with mockery. "Well, I see you finally managed to have a child. Must have taken some help from modern science, huh?" I smiled calmly, pulling out my phone and opening the folder. "You're right, Lily. Science is truly amazing. But you know what's even more fascinating?" I tapped my screen, revealing the photos of Lily wrapped around a stranger at the restaurant. Immediately, her smile vanished. "Where did you get that?" Her voice was sharp, her face turning pale. Nathan frowned, snatching the phone from my hand. As he stared at the pictures, his confusion turned to anger, then finally, to complete shock. "Lily, what the hell is this?" Lily stammered, scrambling for an explanation, but I didn't give her the chance. "Oh, I'm not done yet," I said coolly, pulling out a thick envelope. Ever wonder why Lily got pregnant so easily? Nathan stiffened. "What are you saying?" I smirked, tossing the documents onto the bench beside us. "Emma's DNA test results." I met Nathan's eyes. "Did you really think she was your daughter?" "Because the test says otherwise." Nathan's world shattered right in front of him. He turned to Lily, but she could only bite her lip, unable to utter a single defense. "No. No, this can't be." His voice cracked. I crossed my arms, watching him. The man who betrayed me, who left me behind for his so-called perfect family, as it all crumbled before his eyes. Nathan left Lily immediately. He refused to support her, refused to acknowledge Emma as his child. With nowhere else to turn, Lily moved back in with my parents. But this time she was no longer their golden child. The parents who once praised her endlessly now only scowled whenever they looked at her. Not because they cared about me, but because they despised Lily's failure. And me? I walked away without a shred of pity. They should never have chosen to cast me aside, because I was never the type to come crawling back for their love. I had a new life, a real family. And them? All they had left was regret. I thought that after everything, they would finally leave me alone. But the same people who once threw me away came back, begging for another chance. It all started on a quiet Saturday morning. I was making breakfast for Daniel and Ethan, the sound of my son's laughter filling our warm, cozy kitchen. Then, the doorbell rang. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who was on the other side. I opened the door, and there they were. My father, my mother, and Lily, with Emma. My mother spoke first, her eyes filled with tears. But I felt nothing. "Rachel, can we have a moment?" Her voice trembled. I crossed my arms, staring at them. "What do you want?" I asked, making no move to invite them inside. My father cleared his throat, as if he wasn't used to lowering himself before me. "We made mistakes," my father said slowly. "Can you let us meet Ethan?" My heart turned to ice. They weren't here for me. They were here for my son. My mother blinked, her voice trembling. "He's our grandson, we just want to be his grandparents." Lily, who had been standing behind them, remained silent. The arrogance she once carried was gone. When our eyes met, I saw the regret in hers. But it changed nothing. I looked at them calmly and said, "It gave up your right to be his grandparents a long time ago." My mother was stunned. "Rachel, you can't treat your parents like this," she cried, her voice breaking. I let out a cold chuckle. "And what about the way you treated me?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You threw me away like garbage, called me useless and empty vessel. But now that you see I have a happy family, now that I have a child, you come back demanding the right to be grandparents?" "No, I don't think so." My mother broke into sobs, my father stood frozen, unable to say a word. Lily finally spoke, her voice so small it was almost a whisper. "Rachel, I'm sorry." I looked at her, realizing, for the first time, I had nothing left to say. That night, I told Daniel everything. He wasn't surprised, he simply placed his hand over mine, his eyes filled with understanding. "You made the right choice." I sighed, looking over at Ethan, the son I once thought I could never have. "They didn't truly want me," I murmured. "They only wanted what I have." Daniel squeezed my hand. "Family isn't about blood," he said. "Family is love. It's a choice. And we chose each other." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I had finally stepped out of the shadows of my past. And this time I would never look back. Rachel's story isn't just about betrayal or family wounds. It's about reclaiming herself. She learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by those who choose to love and respect each other. Those who once discarded her, abandoned her, and only returned when she was happy, they no longer had a place in her life. Forgiveness is not an obligation, and cutting off toxic relationships is not wrong. Sometimes, true happiness comes from walking away from what no longer deserves you. What are your thoughts on Rachel's story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or have a different perspective on family and betrayal? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional and meaningful stories about family life.